So in today's video, I want to talk about articulation and a few misconceptions that people have as saxophone players with articulation, and also tonguing really, and how to use different tonguing techniques to fit specific stylistic approaches and nuances, and to actually add a lot of expression to your playing. And that's truly important because tonguing needs to be used as an added expressive element and articulation, not as the main thing. And one of the main problems in the saxophone world that many saxophone players tend to over-articulate, which means as soon as you learn how to use the tongue, everything you play, even just producing the sound, you produce it with the tongue, and then everything you play is like you have the tongue all over the place, and a lot of it is unconscious. This is why many times you might hear yourself or hear players, especially at beginners, using too much of the tongue, like I'm playing all uneven, and then just the tongue kind of going all over the place, but a lot of it is unconscious. Okay, so a few things to fix that and actually use the tongue in an articulation so that you can start sounding more expressive and actually having a much better assessment of what the phrase needs tonguing wise, so that you can actually add a lot of additional expression to the phrase using the tonguing. Now, before anything, watch my video of mastering your airflow, because before actually talking about anything related to tonguing, you need to understand the power of air support and airflow. And even if you do know and you think you have a good air support, I still encourage you to check out that video. I left a link below, and also at the end of that video I'm putting that link as well, just because I'm kind of explaining how airflow is not just about the sound you produce, but most of the expression comes from the air, from the way you breathe and put the air on the saxophone without any tongue at all, which is kind of that technique from George Garçon that when I learned it from him transformed my playing, and I teach it to all my students, which is to release the tongue first. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video as well. Before using the tongue, you need to be able to actually play completely without it and make sure that there's evenness going on in your fingers. That's the most crucial thing, because without evenness and without being able to play completely with no tongue, just with your air and the fingers moving and actually, putting a metronome, making sure you're sounding even, then nothing else you play will matter. If you start tonguing, a lot of what happens is when we start using too much of the tongue, our sound gets all messed up, and our evenness gets messed up, our rhythmic fluency, like all of it just, deteriorates. But if you learn how to play evenly without the tongue first, then introducing the tongue becomes a super fun, expressive element. A lot of sax players, a lot of students, they use the tongue to land on the beats. Even if you put a metronome and you're using the tongue, it just kind of like they're using it to help them, but you should not use the tongue to help you land on the beats, or to, the tongue should be this beautiful addition to your sound, but the core of your sound should come from your airflow, which is why I encourage you to watch that other YouTube video about airflow that I have, because it's really all once you have a good air support, air control, and evenness in your fingers, then you can play evenly, and then you can introduce the tongue. And how do you play beautifully even? With a constant airflow where all your notes sound the same, and with the air you can control the dynamics as well, but to completely release the tongue, right? That's just no tongue at all, just trying to get my sound completely with my airflow and work on that evenness. Okay, so what I want to show you now, so I'm going to put a metronome quickly. I'm going to grab a very simple, nice eighth note phrase without a complex rhythm. Just a nice lush of eighth notes. I'm going to play that phrase first, and I'm going to show you how I will approach my tonguing to that phrase, okay? But initially, what I would do with any phrase, I would remove the tongue completely and make sure I can play it properly. So the phrase is going to be this one. That's it, that's the phrase. I played it without tongue. Now I want to put the metronome in. I'll put it around 100 BPM. And then I'm going to focus without my tongue. In fact, what I do a lot with my students is I would finger the phrase first without my tongue and just make sure it's all even, right? So, and I want you to can put it slower, the metronome a lot slower, a little faster. But ideally, what needs to happen is that constant flow very evenly, right? I'm playing eighth note, so really getting that. Then you can play it with no tongue, and with no tongue, it can be challenging. You gotta make sure that you're really even, right? You need to sound relaxed as well. So a lot of times what would happen, what I would hear is even if you land on the beat, you can still sound uneven, like this. Right? I still landed on the beats on the one, but it's all uneven. And that's part of the rhythmic. Like if that sounds like, if you don't have a good rhythmic accuracy and a good evenness, it all sounds messed up. So again. Really focusing on the evenness. So I would do it without the metronome and without blowing, just with the fingers first, and then try to do it with the blowing, but no tongue at all. You can slow it down. I did it in 100 BPM. You can try 40, 50 BPM. That's going to be hard because the space between the beats is longer. So when you always play it slower, it's like you feel that time and the tendency to rush. You have to control that and keep it there. But now let's talk about tonguing, because ultimately this video I want you to understand a few tonguing techniques and tonguing concepts that you can apply to the saxophone to play jazz and funk and contemporary styles that are going to be very, very effective, right? Because when it comes to tonguing, yes, the different tongues will help you add different sort of expressive elements to your playing. Okay, so let's grab that same phrase. And now, step one, get that stuff even. Get that phrase really even in your fingers. Don't go and introduce the tongue until you can hear like boo da da do da 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 do da do da da do do da do da do do da 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 do da da do da 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 da. Right? You can even sing it. Get that even. Sing it even if you just sing the phrase, tap your foot and play the notes without blowing. Boo da do do da da da. Focus on sounding very even. Try to avoid right? Get that. That's how you're gonna get. Right? That really perfect, like these phrases that are so locked in and groovy. First, they need to come from the evenness. Then when you put rhythms and stuff like that, the tonguing comes in to like articulate, but in a more expressive way. If you use the tonguing and you're not even, then the tonguing is actually going to sound like you're messing up. But if you have a lot of evenness and you know your fingers, everything, the placement is there, then the tonguing comes in as an expressive element, right? And then, then the other element would be like to actually sing and practice your rhythmic language. I have plenty of videos about that you can check out. But that's really important to actually, express the rhythms with your voice and actually sing them. That's really important as well. But to go back to the tonguing, I'm going to grab that phrase now. I'm going to use the first type of tonguing, which is going to be almost like a tenuto, very close to legato, but I'm just going to separate the notes. I'm going to keep the length of each note the same, but I'm going to just do da 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 da, really tackling the reed very softly, but still producing the full length of the notes, right? Now, of course, I wouldn't use that tonguing for that phrase like all the time. I played, I literally divided every single note of that, but that's another thing about tonguing. You don't need, once you play a phrase really evenly, you might actually realize you need the tongue a lot less than you thought, because sometimes we feel we need the tongue to help us with the timing. But once you're playing evenly, you might realize, oh, I don't actually need it as much. You might use it just a little bit, which is really good. So I used it there for every note, but how about just used it maybe just for a few of the notes, right? So you see how the tongue tonging actually helped me add some expression to the phrase, like do ooh da 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 do da ooh da 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 do da ooh da 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 da. Like I used it very limited, like maybe 20 or 17% of the time, so a lot less. But when it did came, my fingers knew where they were. I was even, so it was easy to just add the tonguing as this little, accent, right? Which is really beautiful. That's a plain tonging for me, very basic. Now, I would not play a phrase used like this, using it all the time. Now here, I'm just gonna play for a little bit, improvise, and just try to pay attention. I wanna mainly do legato, and then I might do that specific tongue in here and there. That's a tonguing that can be really helpful. It just separates notes. It's not aggressive, and I'm not actually reducing the amount of time per note. They're really the same eighth notes. Now, let's go to a type of tonguing that would actually cut the timing pretty much by half, which is more of like a staccato, right? But now, we're not in the classical world for this, so I'm not gonna go all crazy with staccato, right? Because you don't want to use that. Nobody's going to use that. But let's shorten out the notes a little more to create a little more like crunchy sound, which is going to be really useful. And for that, especially in like funky contexts and things like that, it's going to create a natural accent to those notes, right? Because when you do that and you cut the amount of time per note, it's like all of a sudden it becomes more impactful, right? So type of tonguing, even some cannonball Adderley licks and stuff like that, it would cut away half of that value. So it really resonant. It's not as useful for this particular phrase because this is like a bunch of eighth notes. But when you have rhythmical phrases, a combination of legato and that tonguing, like I've used, just creates this beautiful do-a-ba-ba. Right? So imagine if in your singing, it's the difference of saying sta, like do or da 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 da. It's like a TA, right? So if I play like a little blues, little lick, or even a funky, more straight 16th notes, I mainly use that tonguing. Maybe I like tied a few notes there. The only thing with this tonguing is that it usually is the one that most players do when they're starting out, because it's actually harder if you don't have a good airflow. The previous tonguing is harder because the tonguing needs to just touch the reed while the sound keeps going on. And then for this tonguing, I'm actually pausing the vibration very, very shortly, right? Which is what happens here, is that a lot of students do this and they instantly mess up their sound as they do it. So hence sounding like this. Sometimes it's because of a lack of air support or just a bad embouchure. Just they don't have the strength in here. Like everything has to be relaxed, but you need a good air support and you need to lock this. You need a good embouchure for that. Like that when you're tonguing this way, you need to be strong so that the sound doesn't like shape like that. It's not a natural articulation for the saxophone. It's more of a brass sort of articulation, right? Bop, bop, bop. But you need to be careful to treat the reed so that the reed doesn't do like, right? Which happens, and that's why you get that kind of destroyed sound. So you have to be really careful if you're going to practice that. effect of when you do that tonguing and then you tie a few notes and then you keep doing it, and then you can actually, the notes don't even have to be the same shortness all the time. You can kind of have a few longers. This is more an improvised element, you know. If you would read these on a chart, a lot of times you would see it like this, like that little hat, which means like a bump, an extra articulation. You see a lot on big band. Ba, 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 da, do, do, ba, 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 right? That kind of thing. It's kind of that combination of that one and then legato, right? Da, da, do, da, do, do, ba, ba, ba. That's the little hat spelled like this, right? So that's very effective, especially for funk and even for jazz. If you're playing like if you're playing very percussive phrases that are short and have a lot of upbeats, then that tonging can be that perfect little element that helps you cut through the phrase, right? As opposed to the other one, which was more, I like the other one a lot. It's just almost like a tenuto. It's still kind of legato, the previous one. So let me go back to my original phrase. I'm going to play it now with this tonging. If I play all the phrase with this very short tonguing, it's not going to sound very good because of that specific phrase, but I'm going to do it anyway. If I use it here and there. So you see, it really depends on the context. If it's a phrase like this one, a bunch of eighth notes, not the best option. But in the funky one, or a phrase that just goes like, becomes really useful to use it that way. So it's a more of a percussive tonguing, right? Very short. You're actually shortening the notes to have a staccato, but on a more accented way, more of a contemporary. Because in classical, you probably wouldn't accent notes as heavily as you do a lot of times in funk or jazz. Right? Just becomes very sort of aggressive. But you need to make sure that you do it with a clean sound. That's a challenge there. Okay, so now the third tonging I'm going to talk about in this video, which is my favorite one, is the ghost tongue. And this is kind of a challenging one. And there's, you know, depending on your type of embouchure and how you do it, people do this differently. I'm going to tell you how I do it. Okay, basically the ghost tonguing is that you're not going to touch the entire reed. You're going to touch a part of it, a side of it, so that half of the reed, it's still vibrating and still producing sound. Hence, it becomes almost like a muted sound, but you still can hear the note. Well, what happens is you get this which is really cool and useful in jazz because it just gives you this laid back feeling, right? But again, you need to come from really good evenness and good rhythm and stuff like that, and good airflow, because whenever you're not stopping the note completely, you need good airflow all the time. But in this case, again, you're not stopping the reed. You're just approaching it. In my case, I do it through the side. Some people do it like at the bottom, but they still leave some in the tip. But to me, I just do it at the side, making this sound. So you see the note sharpens pretty much. It just... has this lacy sound that can be super good, cool in jazz. Dexter Gordon used it a lot. You know, Ben Webster, the old guys, they'll use that tonguing a lot. It just creates this kind of like buttery sound that I personally love, especially if you're already playing evenly and you just want a tonguing that just makes it mellow. For ballads or even for jazz, I'm going to play now the original phrase I played with this tongue. I want to tongue every note. Now, for this one, you can actually tongue every note and make it sound pretty cool. This is why I love all the ghost tongue, because it has kind of a little bit of both worlds. So even if I tongue every note, right, it's still pretty cool. It has this little, like really buttery sound that I love. Now, if I put it here and there, and I'm going to combine just legato and that tonguing, fast like that, I mainly use legato and that tonging, because the other tongings are too aggressive. Even the one that just separates, I might use it as well, here and there. The second one, I would not use it when I'm playing fast unless it's super rhythmical, right? Tag up, like. Right, I would maybe use it like that. But other than that, I would use this one a lot when I'm playing jazz, like the ghost tonging, like this. Almost has this comic kind of thing, which is really cool. So I can combine these three tongings. This is the ones I use the most, you know, like at least for contemporary jazz and Latin. In Latin, I might do a little more of the second one, more staccato for funk as well. The first one, I would use it on all the styles because it's very mild. It's just about separating the notes, kind of in between legato but still tackling the reed, right? So let's refresh the three tongings right now, and I'm going to play a little bit using the three of those, so you can kind of hear them being applied in an improvisation. Now you need to make these tongings natural, right? So the first one is just a continuous airflow, always a continuous airflow, and I'm basically stopping the vibration. It's so short, it's like touching the reed like that. So it's almost like it doesn't stop, but you just kind of separate the notes, right? It might be useful for passages where you're just going up and you don't want it to sound all legato, right? Or you're just kind of going scaly, like. Right? So it's very effective like that, so that it doesn't sound ultra legato. Like you just divide the notes and it makes this precision, especially when you're playing even, adds expression to it. Or when you want to simply divide, you're playing mainly legato, but you want to divide a few notes, then that one, the first one, is perfect for that. That's a very effective tonging that just keeps everything sort of like continuous and almost tight, but you separate the notes. Beautiful to combine it with legato and add a little bit of that first tonging to just make this nice little passages that sound very smooth, right? Now for the second tonging, of course, is more staccato and accented. Beautiful for more rhythmical phrases that require shortening the note to make it more impactful, right? Bo ba 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 bo da ba. It goes really well as well with legato. Right? If you combine it with legato, it just creates these beautiful little shapes, right? You're playing Latin, both are things like that, even calypso, right? That one's the hardest to do to not break the sound, right? But it's very useful. That's a tonging that would really help me out rhythmically, right? When I have a good rhythmic language and I'm training rhythms and I'm singing do ba 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 bo da 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 da. You need to shorten those notes to make that rhythm bouncy and groovy. That's the tonging I use for groove. If I really want my phrase to actually almost blend with the groove, right? If you think about funk, like that's the kind of tonging. Combine it with a few legato notes, and you get a pretty crispy phrase there. Beautiful. Funk, Latin, and rhythmical jazz swing, but just very rhythmic things. And then finally the ghost tongue, just to mainly use it as swing, but honestly I use it in everything that where I want it to sound more mushy, buttery sound. It's just beautiful. You see, it just has this kind of buttery sound. It's just so much fun to do. You can kind of combine them all together, right? And use that like ghost tonging with a regular tonging and maybe a few staccato or the second tonging to make more precise rhythms, right? So when you're improvising, I'll use the first tonging just to blend in with legato. I use the second tonging when I'm really rhythmical and I want short rhythms and like maybe bounced up rhythms where a lot of upbeats, right, are very precise. And I'll use this third one just to sound this expressive buttery sound, right? So you see, I kind of use the three tongings, like, and I'm not thinking about it. I try to think about it just to give you the example, but usually that's what I do. More legato, I introduce tongue number one. Very rhythmical, I want to make that, you see that rhythmical just adds this like, bam, like very, sort of a powerful statement, rhythmical, bouncy, groovy, and then the other one is just has this jazzy, laid-back sound. But anyway, that's it. That's the three tongings that I use the most for improvisation, at least in contemporary music, contemporary style. So you can go ahead and practice them, leaving your comments, any questions, if you like this video and what else you want to see for my next video. So if you like this video, please subscribe, turn on notifications. I post a video like this every Tuesday about jazz improvisation, arranging, composition, and harmony, and a lot more things coming. So make sure to leave in the comments what's your favorite topic to talk about and what you want to see next, and I'll make sure to include that. I also left a little link to my free training where I'm showing you how you can transform your improvisation skills with rhythm, which is truly the #1 element that you need to fix to improve your improvisation skills. And then also a link to join my Improv Mastery Circle with a special offer. This is my exclusive private community where I share all my step-by-step system, my roadmap from scratch to advanced on how to start implementing basic things at a time to start drastically boosting your improvisation skills. And then it's a community, so there's amazing players from all over the world sharing their progress, getting direct feedback from me. We do live group sessions and a lot of like weekly posts and challenges. It's truly an amazing place if you want to improve and really transform your playing with community support, not do it alone. This is the place to do it. So I left all the links below this video. Make sure to check them out, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week.